no order, some chaos, and a lot of fun. JockWave.
Making me absolutely crazy. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40! I ain't scared of you. Or who we thought they were. And we let them go. You can't have my cornbread, that's for damn sure. But if you try to take my cornbread, part 2 of my killing spree won't begin up in here on your ass right now.
Greetings and salutations. You know who it is. It's me, King David B. Welcome to JockWave. You know, the one thing about us, well, there's only me for now, so we won't call it an us just yet. So the one thing about me and this podcast is that we like to have a good time. We like to talk about things. We like to laugh. We don't need a whole lot of information to talk about it. However, we do read. No, I do read. I read the headlines. I read parts of articles. I will do as much research as is necessary to find out what I want to find out. I don't continue to do research after I find out what I want to find out, okay? Because there's no purpose of that. If I find out what I need to find out, I don't have to continue to research something if I already got the answer. See, some people continue to research things after they find, and then they confuse themselves with what they already know. So don't get me wrong, I want to know the truth. I want to learn the truth. I want to know what's real. I want to know versus what's false, or what's fact versus what's fiction. But the main thing is to find out the right answer. And once I find out that, I'm not going to continue to search for another answer if, in fact, the right answer is fact. So I can just kind of, I think people bog their minds down with extra information that they don't need in certain cases. Because some people just want to seem smart. I don't want to seem smart. I know I am. Thank you very much. All right, we're done with that. The show. So what does it have to do with the show? Just kind of a little glimpse of the brains and ideas of JockWave and of the King here. Thank you very much for joining me. Let's get into something. No order here. No order. I was reading an article today. Housewives of Atlanta. Housewives of Atlanta are having their lowest rated season ever. To the point where I've read that Nene Leakes, who has been the kind of the, if you want to say, the cornerstone of the Atlanta Housewives, she has she's possibly, I wouldn't say, well, what I read was that she might be getting the axe. But my understanding is that she's making a lot of money. They believe she's making too much money. And when you're making too much money, they're like, okay, well, somebody has to be cut from either your pay has to be cut or you have to go. So I'm guessing what they're saying is that she's not willing to take a pay cut, then she's not going to be on the show. That's my understanding. I believe her and Candy make the most money on the show. I'm certain Candy wasn't hurting before the show, and I'm certain that Candy won't be hurting after the show. So I believe that Candy doesn't. I'm certain that Candy is not going to be worried about that either way it goes. Nene blew up from the show, and I think the show still matters to her pocketbook. Even though she might have the swag boutique and she might be a up and coming comedian, You know, I'm not sure if she's still acting or not. You know, she might have all these endeavors, but I think her main, what they call it, the bag now, her main bag was coming from Atlanta Housewives. So I'm thinking, and from my understanding, she wants to hold on to that job. that's the gig she wants to hold on to for show. Okay? Now, let's change gears for a second and talk about government shutdown day 21. 21 days of a government shutdown. I believe this is the longest shutdown, or ties. It's tied for the longest shutdown in history. Is that what it is? Something to that effect. Donald Trump is the president of the United States of America. In case you didn't know, one would say he has decided to shut the government down because he's not getting funding or the right funding for the hundreds of miles that he wants to build of a wall that he wants to build on the southern border of the United States. But I'm trying to think about it because, you know, it's really, I guess, day 21 now. We're getting to day 21. Now, the understanding is there's about 800,000 federal employees that now, I think they said they're on furlough, or they are, you know, or they won't be getting any paychecks. So they're not getting paid now. So now they're not getting any money. They're, you know, their paychecks are now, you know, that 2 weeks has went by, and yeah, they're going to be missing that money. Which tells me one thing: Uber and Lyft is going to have a record amount of applicants and uploaded driver apps or download driver apps. Uber and Lyft are going to skyrocket right now. I'm telling you, man, they're getting a bunch of drivers all across America. You can rest assured that you will not have to worry about an Uber or a Lyft, because with the 800,000 federal employees that are out of work, you can rest assured that a number of them are going to be driving for you in the weeks to come, if not starting today, if they haven't already started. So that's what we can pull. That's the silver lining out of this. Uber and Lyft are going to get some doggone drivers out of this. Thank you, government shutdown. Thank you, Donald Trump, for shutting down the government so Uber and Lyft can get that proper surge that they need, and the American public can benefit from it. Yeah, thank you for that. He is a great president. Thank you for driving with Uber and Lyft. Who I'm not sponsoring. Nobody sponsors me at this point in time. But hey, Uber, Lyft, if you'd like to sponsor this show, you know, talk to me. Email, call, do something, please. Okay, let's move on from the government shutdown. The government shutdown, can I say, talking about the government shutdown is a little depressing. The fact that a government can even shut down is depressing. I think that shutting down a federal government is like shutting down Facebook. You know, the idea when you watch the movie, the Social Network, and the actor playing Mark Zuckerberg made the statement that Facebook can never shut down. Facebook can never, you know, what's the word? He used a specific word, one of those computer terms. But basically Facebook can never be offline. That's the idea. And that's what he's saying. Like, Facebook can never be offline. We always got to be up. You know, if we lose it for one moment, then, and that's the idea. That Instagram and I think Twitter and another, that they've adopted that idea, that concept that came from Facebook, is that we can never be offline. We can never be, but apparently Donald Trump, while he tweets all the time, doesn't take that same mentality as it pertains to running the government. And even the government, whoever's in charge of ensuring that the funding stays at a level so that we can continue to operate business as usual. I believe that there has to be a concept taken there from the book of Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, that we can never shut down. But apparently America hasn't come along with that mentality yet, although technology has. And I think that we need to catch up to that, because the government shouldn't shut down. It's depressing. The government there should never be a shutdown in the government. I don't care which part of it. There just should never be a shutdown in the government. That sounds stupid. That's the best word I can use. It's stupid. Huh? For all you intelligent-minded people who might be paying attention or listening to a young man by the name of David Brewer, which is King David here at JockWave, this is the best term for the government shutdown. Stupidity. Thank you very much. I'm done talking about that. Let's move on to the NFL playoffs, okay? Shall we? Let's embark on the NFL playoffs. A little bit of a lighter side of things. While the government is shut down, we have the NFL playoffs going on. I mean, can I tell you something? While the government is shut down, there's a number of things happening. In America, there's a number of things happening in the world. But, the government shut down, but we're still having the NFL playoff. So, I'm the sports guy who talks about a lot more than just sports. We just got done talking about something other than sports. What are we going to talk about now? Sports, because people are paying attention to the NFL playoffs if they're not paying attention to the government shutdown. Okay? So, the NFL playoffs this weekend, you have 2 games tomorrow, you have 2 games on Sunday. They will decide who will be going to the NFC and AFC championship game. So we have a total of 8 teams. These are for all you people who don't pay attention to sports. We have the Colts versus the Chiefs. This is an AFC matchup. The Chiefs are, I believe, favored to win. I don't do with the lines. Interesting thing. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, about the lines of things, like the numbers, the Vegas lines, or what do you call them? The lines for gambling. Okay? Because they mention those all the time on radio, like mainstream radio and television mentions these lines as set by Vegas standards, or whatever it is they're set by, the gambling of America, the National Gambling Association of America, the NGA. Okay, I don't think that's true, but they might as well say it, because that's what it is, and because people are mentioning these lines on television, on radio, and people go by these lines, and which is interesting. So, but let's talk about I don't know anything about the lines. I'm just saying I believe Kansas City is favored, and if they're not, they should be. I'm certain that they are. I've given my picks before, but I'm going to say it again today, live on JockWave. Thank you for tuning in. I'm King David, and we're talking about the playoffs right now. NFL playoffs. So the Colts will lose to the Kansas City Chiefs. Why? Because the Colts have not yet come up to the point to where they are able to compete with the level of, I believe, the Kansas City Chiefs at this point in time. Kansas City Chiefs, under the expert knowledge of head coach Andy Reid, who is always capable and able to make it to these championship games, but has yet to win a Super Bowl as a head coach. I think that his defenses are always a little shoddy. Yeah, I would venture on saying that his defenses are always a bit obscure. I think that's a good term for Andy Reid's defenses. But his offenses can be literally perfection, and I believe he learned that perfection from, wasn't he, he was a protege of Bill Walsh? Was he a Bill Walsh protege? I think so. I have to look that up. But, I mean, his ability to run an offense or to create a magnificent offensive strategy and a magnificent offense, to build a magnificent offense I think is amazing. His ability as far as to create a team wrapped around the idea that, yes, you can have a great offense, but you still have to match that with at least a decent, I would say average to decent defense. Your defense has to be at least a C+. Okay? If your offense is a juggernaut and nobody can stop the offense, you still have to have a somewhat okay defense to stop people, at least once or twice to win a game. And that monstrosity on Monday Night Football, while it was entertaining with the LA Rams and the Kansas City Chiefs, while it was entertaining, it was a monstrosity of epic proportions, because I think that a professional football team or professional football match should never have two teams scoring 50 points. Do you hear me? Unless something is just catastrophically wrong. Okay. Andy Reid's ability to create a championship defense is the reason why he has won a Super Bowl as a head coach yet. But hey, maybe this year can change. But we're talking about the divisional playoffs right now, and here we are, Kansas City Chiefs and the Colts. The Kansas City Chiefs will win. The score is going to be 36-14. The Colts just don't have enough offense, and the Chiefs have nothing but offense. So we'll say that the Chiefs are going to. That's why I'm telling you, the Chiefs are going to destroy the Colts defense. However, the Colts are going to. I said it's going to be an interesting game with the first quarter and a half, and then the Chiefs maybe for the first quarter, and the Chiefs are going to just take over. Okay, boom, there you go. Chiefs win 36-14. Next, we're going to the Rams. That's the late game tomorrow. The Rams versus Dallas versus the Rams, because the Dallas are going to L.A. Los Angeles has two teams, mind you, in the playoffs this year, with the Rams and the Chargers. L.A. Rams, another juggernaut offense. The Rams have a touch of a good defense. I think their defense is something like a C, maybe even a C-. I would give it a C-. They have the highest paid defensive lineman. What's his name? Yeah. They have the highest paid defensive lineman in the league. And they've done well. There's no question that the young coach has taken them to new heights readily, very quickly. Hats off to the LA Rams. I don't like the Dallas Cowboys. I don't want to make a prediction based off my dislike of the Dallas Cowboys. But however, I will predict that the Cowboys will lose. Only because I think the Rams offense is a juggernaut. And I don't think the Cowboys defense, while they did play halfway decent against Seattle, halfway. I think that Seattle was coming back. I think that the Rams can move the ball a little better than Seattle's offense. So I think that the Cowboys barely won last week. So I will tilt my hat towards the Rams. The score is going to be 37-20. The Rams win. No questions asked. Boom. What's the next game? Sunday, we have the other LA team, the Chargers. I actually didn't realize that they had changed to Los Angeles. I thought they were still in San Diego. But apparently they are the Los Angeles Chargers as well. I think it's ridiculous to have two teams in the same city. This is not the NBA. I don't think the NBA has two teams in the same city, do they? I mean, they have a couple teams, in the same. I mean, same state. That's one thing, but just two teams in the same city. That's kind of they do. The LA Clippers and the LA Lakers. So I just think Los Angeles having two professional football teams is kind of ridiculous. I think that you couldn't have used another team, another state, another city, something. It's okay. We'll talk about that later. We're talking about the playoffs here. The Chargers are playing against the Patriots, the other AFC game. I'm sorry, the Dallas and the Rams are the NFC team, NFC game. The other AFC game is the Chargers and the Patriots. Some would say the Patriots are going to meet their match. They're going to fall short. They're going to crumble. They don't have it. The Chargers are hungry. They want it more. The Patriots just don't have enough power. They don't have enough high-powered offense as they once did. Gronk is not in there, I don't think. It's not possible for the Patriots to win. We're talking about the New England Patriots under Bill Belichick, who is the protege of Bill Parcells, mastermind of the 1990 Super Bowl victory. Well, even though the Bills lost that, the Giants played the Bills perfectly that day, and they played them to the point where they got them to, they had to make that field goal or not. So I give them respect for that. The Giants, and I'm talking about the Giants in 1990 because of Bill Belichick, who was, I believe, the defensive coordinator at the time. And like I said, the ability to stop the juggernaut of an offense that was the Buffalo Bills in 1990 with Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, Steve Tasker. Kenneth Davis was like the backup running back. Was Lofton there yet, or was he still in Green Bay at the time? But they had a fantastic offense there, and the ability that the Giants had to make that offense look average was all Bill Parsons. Like I said, it wasn't just Bill. It was all Bill Belichick. It was a Bill Belichick strategy for his defense. Yes, it helped to have Lawrence Taylor, but you're telling me that one of the best offenses in the history of the league with the Buffalo Bills in 1990. They weren't supposed to score less than, I would say, 35 points in that game. And Bill Belichick somehow always manages to figure out the weak spots in in a team. And he's a master of that. And I would love to work under him. If he hears this, somebody should throw my name to him and tell him that David Brewer, King David, JockWave, would love to talk to him, chop up his mind, and be a shadow under him so I can learn. Because I ultimately want to be a football coach too. So I can learn, from literally the best. The Pats will win, okay? I think it's going to be a close game, though. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be in the 20s. I think we're talking about 27-22. The Patriots win. It's going to be close. It's going to be close the entire game. I don't think it goes into overtime, but I think the Patriots win and 27-22. Okay? It's going to be all Bill Belichick on this one. All the right plays are going to happen. Okay? Thank you very much. What's next? The last game of the weekend, we have New Orleans Saints and the Philadelphia Eagles. We have Sean Payton, who came into the locker room with the Lombardi Trophy and $200,000 in cash with armed guards, saying, "Hey, you want this? You want it?" Okay. I don't know if he said it like that, but that's how I would have said it. You know what I'm saying? That's how I would have put it. "You want this?" I said, "You want it?" You know, that's from over the top. So he put it to his players and, inspire, motivate. And let's hope that he did. I believe that he did. I think the New Orleans defense has been playing remarkable. And I think the New Orleans offense has got their rest. Drew Brees got the rest he needs. And I think that they're ready to go out and fire. I believe that the Eagles, even though Nick Foles is a capable quarterback, I think the Eagles fall short. And Doug Peterson's even a capable head coach. I know he's makes very wonderful schemes. The Eagles are going to fall short this week because they're going to be unable to deal with that offense in New Orleans. The ending score will be 31-18. New Orleans Saints win the game. So, in the AFC Championships, we will have the Kansas City Chiefs versus the New England Patriots. And in the NFC Championship, we are going to have the Los Angeles Rams versus the New Orleans Saints. And understand something. There's going to be no upsets this week. Okay, thank you very much. We move on. After I've seen Kevin Hart's last movie, I was like, man, you know what I think he needs to do? I think he needs to start trying to do different movies. Like, getting kind of his same acting or kind of the same role. It's getting a little, redundant. He just keeps doing the same thing over and over again. For him to be, I think, to be one of the best actors, or even the best comedic actors, I think he has to get a bit more of like a dramedy or something and he was at the time I'm talking about that to people. He's doing The Upside and with Bryan Cranston and Nicole Kidman, I believe. I think that this will be a breakout role. I think this will be a breakout movie. I think this sends him, I don't know, into the stratosphere necessarily, but I think it sends him a little farther than he was before. And I think it definitely is a grand notch in his belt as an actor. It's going to carry him, I believe, into another area. I know that he's had issues of recently with the whole LGBTQ/SH. Yeah. He's had some issues with that and the Oscars and all of that. So I'm not going to talk about that because I think I can talk about that for a number of minutes. That's probably its own show, its own 45 minutes by itself. But there's no reason to talk about that right now. I think this movie catapults Kevin Hart a little higher, and I wish him all the luck. I want to see this movie. So good luck to Kevin Hart. Bryan Cranston, I like him as an actor. I'm not really a big Nicole Kidman fan. Don't really care. But she's a good actress. She's a good actress. So there you go. This is JockWave, in case you didn't know. And I'm King David, in case you didn't know. Just wanted to tell you that. You know what? I want to send you a dude. How about this? You know what? That wasn't the best effect that I could have used. Let's talk about job interviews. Okay. Why am I talking about job interviews? Because I was watching the previews or the trailer for The Upside, and Kevin Hart was on the job interview at the fast food restaurant, and I think the lady asked him how have you made decisions, or how have you shown that you have made tough decisions? Tell me a time when you've made a tough decision. And it made me think about job interviews. First, at fast food restaurants, why would they be asking an idiotic question like that? Is it silly? Is it a silly question? Yes, for a fast food restaurant. Why is it fast food restaurants? Have you been to McDonald's and Wendy's and KFC or Taco Bell? Have you been to these places, first of all? Do you know who works at Burger King and McDonald's? And teenagers. The vast majority of workers at definitely at McDonald's, which is the biggest fast food chain in the world, along with Subway. But the vast majority of people who work at these fast food restaurants are teenagers. They're 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, and who are still in school, high school. Some of them, when you get to 18, 19, some of them might be in college. But that's the vast majority of the employees. And you're asking questions at an interview like, tell me about a time where you made a tough decision. Tell me about a time. What is the purpose of these bogus interviews? I think job interviews are so purposeless. You cannot judge a person based off of interview questions that anybody can answer the right way. Do you understand what I'm saying? Job interviews are so pointless. They are. They really are. I think that a job interview should be, let me challenge you for a day to see if you can do the work. A job interview shouldn't be a day. That's why I think they're pointless. I think they're outdated. I think job interviews are outdated. I think they're silly. I think they are so stupid. And I think that the only purpose of job interviews is so the person can look at you and just kind of look at you, see who you are, and I think they judge you before you complete a word. So I think that's what a job interview originally was for, back in the back ends. I don't even know when they started. Maybe I need to look that one up. But I believe that they're completely biased events. Am I using the right word? It's just a biased thing to do. A job interview is bias. It's just so I can see who you look like. I can see what you sound like, because it can't really judge whether or not you're a good worker or not. An interview cannot judge that. It can't. I'm sorry. Answering questions the right way can't tell you how that person works. Okay? It can't. No, it can't. I don't care what you say. You'll never get me to understand that fully. You'll never get me to say, you can tell as long as they answer this way. Or you can tell by how they engage you. No, you can have an engaging person who is intelligent, who is witty, who knows his stuff or her stuff, and they can still get in the job and quit in a week or not be able to perform their job, okay? Because the interview can't tell you how exactly they work. The interview can only tell you how exactly they talk, okay? So the interview is basically advertising. You understand what I'm saying? So, and the advertising isn't, like I said, in certain cases, I think a job interview might be necessary, like when it comes to something critical, if you need to know specific information to get the job, much like a doctor, or maybe specific information. I'm talking about you have to know specific information to get the job done, not that you're able to research while you're working. And a doctor, maybe some type of machinery that you have to use, stuff like that. But the whole, tell me about a time where you had to do this, and tell me about a time where this happened, and how do you feel about, when it comes to your coworkers, are you willing to follow? All of that stuff is horse manure at best. Job interviews are pointless. If you want to see somebody in their element. You'll see somebody, whether or not they're able to complete a job the right way, put them in the element, and then you'll see. But these job interviews, like fast food restaurants asking the same questions as Fortune 500 companies, freaking ridiculous. Thank you very much. I'm done with that one. Let's move on. Can we go back to the NFL for a second? Yes. Let's go back to the NFL for a second because I want to talk about the Vikings. Okay? I am an old Minnesota boy, born and raised in St. Paul, Minnesota, went to the University of Minnesota Duluth, came back home, went to the University of Minnesota, love Minnesota, love St. Paul, love where I'm from. I love Minneapolis. I just think Minnesota's an awesome state. It is. I love all you people from Minnesota. Big up to Minnesota. I mean, I live in Georgia now, but big up to Minnesota. I love you too, Georgia, but big up to Minnesota. That's where I was born and raised. Now, let me talk about you for a second, Minnesota Vikings. Okay, let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings for a second, because the Minnesota Vikings fell short, which is why the Eagles are even in the playoffs, which is something I want to talk about as it pertains to the quarterback situation that we had at the end of last season. The Kirk Cousins and Case Keenum decision. But you see, one was KC and one was CK. Kirk Cousins versus Case Keenum. So I want to talk about that for a second, and it might be the last thing I talk about on this show. But I want to get it out there for a second to understand why on earth we chose Kirk Cousins, who hasn't proven himself, versus a Case Keenum who was here proving himself. Once again, the job interview thing, we just wanted somebody who was a name. Case Keenum was a journeyman. We didn't know him that well. He just came up. And I think the Vikings kind of believed in what the analysts and journalists and a number of ESPN and FSN and all of these different people making conclusions about whether or not Case Keenum had the ability to duplicate his performance of last year. And I think under that same offense, with those same players and the gel and the chemistry, I trust and believe that Case Keenum would have made a big difference. And they would have actually won more games in the regular season. They would have went to the playoffs if Case Keenum was there. I think it was a completely horse crap and ridiculously stupid and horrible decision to choose Kirk Cousins when you had a quarterback who had already gelled with his offense. Okay, I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else to say about that. I don't think Kirk Cousins is a bad guy. I don't know. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I don't know. But I think he is an average quarterback, and I don't think that we made an upgrade with Kirk Cousins versus Case Keenum. I don't. I think that we had a guy who was on an upward trend, and how we had kept him in the Minnesota Vikings. Had the Minnesota Vikings kept him, I think they would be singing a different song this year. But they kept Kirk Cousins. They go Case Keenum. They got Kirk Cousins, and you've seen the end of it. There you go. Yeah, okay. Real short. I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to mention that. Lastly, on the show today, what we're going to talk about, we were going to talk about the NBA best players per the, top, scorer list, because I wanted to ask about a guy named Alex English that I've never heard of in my life. But I think he's from the 70s. But let's talk about, let's move on a little bit, okay? And let's talk about church. Let's talk about God. Let's talk about what I like to call my Sound Doctrine Sound Doctrine portion of JockWave. Sound Doctrine is a channel that I have. It's a ministry that I'm investing time in. I am a child of God. I believe in Jesus. I believe in God. I believe in the Holy Ghost. I believe in the Word of God. I believe in the Holy Bible. Okay, I'm a believer. So, while we're at the end of the show, let's talk about this. Last but definitely not least, we're going to talk about church. Now, the reason why we're talking about church is not for me to preach Jesus today, but the Sound Doctrine portion of JockWave. Thank you, I'm King David. The Sound Doctrine portion is going to be talking about what? Today's church. And I'm talking about it because today's church is a fashion statement. It is fashionable to be a churchgoer now. It's a fashion thing. It's Tyler Perry, who is a popular producer and director and writer, and I believe a number of other people have made church. Oprah Winfrey even. Church has become fashionable. It's a fashion statement. What church you go to is now a fashion statement. What preachers are fashion statements. It's now fashionable to say God is good. It's fashionable to do. So all of this stuff is fashionable now, right? And I'm trying to compare the fashionable church of the day versus the church from yesteryear, or what people would consider the original church, or even if you say not the original church, but definitely the church from the 60s, or the church from the 70s, 80s, 90s, where it wasn't necessarily fashionable. You didn't have all the glitz and glamour. There were very few churches with that glitz and glamour, but now every church wants to be the glitz and glamour. And I'm just, I'm kind of puzzled myself at the way church has been, the direction in which church is going. I'm puzzled in the sense that, of course, if you read the Word of God, it talks about what's going to happen in the last days. But I'm puzzled in the sense that those believers who I believe are, because some of the people in church are true believers. And some people in church just go to church. And like I said, it's just a fashionable thing to do. They do it because it's what everybody else does. They do it because their mom taught them to do it. They do it because, it's not because they're true believers to the heart of hearts of things. They go to church just because. Like I said, it's just a fashionable thing to do. This is what everybody does on Sunday. This is what my family does on Sunday. This is what, so-and-so does on Sunday. My friends do this on Sunday. We all go to church and we all talk about what happened. And then, they go along with their life. It's not really, it doesn't really mean much anymore to be considered a church goer. Doesn't mean much. Before, I think, to be a churchgoer, you had to, I would say, love Jesus. I mean, truly, that's what you went to church because. You went to church because you loved Jesus. Now, the Catholic Church, I think, is different because Catholics and Christians aren't the same thing. But it's, you are considered, like I said, the church that we are considered, that, like I said, the black culture has made church fashionable. And we're taking all the aspects of the Church of God in Christ, of Baptists, of, things that were, go from a long time ago. And now they are punchlines, they're jokes, they're used to kind of shame churchgoers and even people who have been there for the duration of time. And I think that we have to pull back on that, even though I think that what the Bible says is true, so that people are going to be pushing forward to furthermore ostracize the church and believe the lie instead of the truth. But that's what I had to say about that. Okay? Thank you for joining me today. It's always been a pleasure. It always will be a pleasure. I'm King David, and this is JockWave.